Welcome to Founder Stories with Mona Juneja. This is the podcast you'll wish you found sooner. In each episode, I talk to founders who left their 9 to 5 to build their own business. They share mistakes, late nights, and the moments they almost gave up. If you have been thinking of starting something, these stories will give you the push you need. So let's get started. Welcome, Dina, to the Founder Stories podcast. It's my pleasure to have you here.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
All right, great. Thank you, Dina. It'll be great to get started with your introduction. Who are you? What do you do? And where are you from?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm Dina from Germany, but I haven't lived there in more than a decade. And I'm a business coach for new coaches and new online service providers who are looking to truly turn their soul mission into a business and that business into the vehicle for their freedom, financially, location, time, but also intellectually. And my background is in musical theater and fundraising. I used to be a fundraiser for orchestras in the United States and very quickly realized that the 9 to 5 wasn't going to me by my be all end all. And while I was in that job, musicians kept coming up to me and saying, I have this vision, I have this idea, I have this passion, but I don't know business. You do. Can you help me turn this idea into impact and into a business? Sometimes it was for profit. Sometimes it was nonprofit back then. So I started coaching on the side without even knowing that business coaches were a thing, that coaches were a thing. And then from there, and this would have been 2019, things just started rolling. I got an amazing promotion, a visa sponsorship offer from my company in Los Angeles, and I turned that down the next day, booked a one-way ticket to Vietnam the next day, and just started building from there. So, these days I help people transition out of a job, and I help them put a plan together so that they have a bit of a cushion by the time they hand in that resignation. That was most definitely not me. It just completely instinctually, I decided this is not going to be for me, and I have this great offer and it looks perfect on paper, but it really feels off in my body. And so I quit. I did the thing that felt most rational to me, that looked most irrational from the outside looking in at the time, and it was one of the best decisions I've ever made. So yeah, I've been nomadic for a few years now. Even when I lived in the United States, I was quite nomadic, but I ended up, always having an address. And recently, my partner and I just really fell in love with the city of Da Nang here in Vietnam. So this is the first time in a decade that I've lived in the same city for more than a year, which is all kinds of crazy and amazing.
All right. So, Dina, if I understand your background correctly, you had a 9 to 5 job and you money, and you had a visa sponsorship from a company in LA. Instead of taking that offer, you decided to follow your heart and you decided to just move to Vietnam and start your own life.
Yeah, I mean, that's such a perfect summary, except for the part where I moved to Vietnam. I didn't move to Vietnam 5 years ago. I came here with a backpack.
Okay.
And I did the whole let's live in hostels, let's do a $30 budget a day lifestyle for a few weeks just to sort of find myself. Because what I find happens to a lot of people is we grow up and we go to college and we start our 9 to 5, and before we know it, we live a life that we didn't choose. We live a life that felt correct by societies, our parents, our families, our friends' standards, but not by our heart standards. And by the time I quit, I didn't know who the frick I was. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know what I could do, what would bring me joy. So I just had to completely step away from everything, and just really travel and meditate and journal and sort of find myself. And what came through that backpacking trip was, I'm going to help people. That was the extent of my business plan at the time, right? Again, I didn't have a big plan. The plan just sort of came as I went. I just knew I couldn't go back, because
So
that was gonna just affect me negatively.
Right, right. So, how long was your backpacking trip lasted before you realized that you wanted to help people?
Yeah, it lasted, I think, about 6 weeks. And that's when I decided to move back to Germany. So at the time, I still lived in the United States. I thought I was going to keep living there. But on that backpacking trip, somewhere between Singapore and Sri Lanka, I decided it's time to go home. It's time to go home and figure out some personal things, reconnect with, my country of origin, my family, my friends there. And so, yeah, I started building my business while I was living in Germany.
Germany. All right.
Mhm.
And when did you leave Germany and started traveling again?
2022, February 28th, 2022, I started my nomadic life, or I started over my nomadic life.
And then you exactly knew what you were doing. I'm sure you had a company and you were already helping people from Germany.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. So between 2019, late 2019 and early 2022 is when I just honkered down, heads down. We all know the big C was happening in the world during that time. So there was no distractions. I didn't allow myself any distractions. Those are the years when I built my business. Those are the years where I just filled my calendar with calls, where I connected with everybody and their mother just to get going. And the business went through plenty of iterations during these couple of years. I started supporting classical musicians become entrepreneurs. And then that became professional coaching. So I kind of opened up my niche to I'm going to help anyone who's a professional become a happier person. And then I realized, wait a minute, everyone I support wants to become location independent, wants to be or already is an entrepreneur, and wants to really step into a place where their purpose doesn't get pushed to the side by their business or by their career, but gets to take front and center stage through their business and thanks to their business. And so for the last 3 years, that's exactly what I've been doing, right? It's not where I started. A lot of coaches don't start where they end up, and you have full permission to step through multiple iterations, much like I did, much like many of my clients do, to sort of figure out what it is that makes sense financially, but also really lights you on fire.
Right, right. So in February 2022, when you decided to leave Germany,
Yes.
which was the first country you decided to visit?
Lisbon, Portugal.
Okay, so you started your trip from Lisbon and then I'm assuming you moved around towards Southeast Asia and traveled around?
Yeah, I followed my heart quite literally. I was set to go and visit some friends in Mexico, and then I had a dream about Bali, and I booked a flight to Bali, and then, things unfolded from there. I don't think anyone who becomes a digital nomad has it all planned out. We all sort of end up going to where the heart takes us.
Right, right. I know what you mean. So, Dina, why I started this podcast was to inspire people like myself, like you, who once had a 9 to 5 job and who always dreamt leaving their job and be location independent and also love traveling because not
Yeah.
everyone likes to travel and likes to hop from one place to another, so that's a big part. So in 2014 my husband and I, we decided to quit our well-paid jobs and travel for a year. So we backpacked across 7 countries. We exhausted all our savings. That time we did not know that there was a way, to live this lifestyle. So we promised in 2014 that in 10 years we are going to make this happen somehow. And in the last 10 years, we've lived in the US, in London, in Amsterdam. And
Mhm.
this year, in May 2025, we were like, yes, this is it. 10 years are over. Let's do it. And we'll figure things out. And we
Amazing.
quit, yeah, my husband quit his job this year. I quit my job last year. And we have been traveling since June. So our first country was Georgia, the country Georgia, and we were there for 2 months. Then we went back to India. I'm originally from India, and now we are in Vietnam, in Da Nang, beautiful city. So yes, so when you and in my experience, I've seen that if you follow your heart, it might not be the logical way because in 2014 when we announced to our family members that we are leaving our jobs, so both of us were with Oracle, and when we announced to our family members that we are leaving our jobs, it didn't go well. They were like, what, our colleagues also, what are you going to do? You're going to exhaust your savings. But with that, a lot of good things happened because we followed our hearts. With that, we got an opportunity to live in London and work in London. So I think when you follow your heart, things just starts to happen. The universe
Yes.
makes things happen for you. You just have to allow yourself to go into the unknown.
Yeah, and I so love hearing some more of your story. And absolutely, I mean, way to set yourself a goal and then work towards that goal and make it happen, right? And that's a scary goal, right? I want to be nomadic and I want to quit my job and I want to be able to make money while traveling. That's a scary goal for many reasons. Even though you and I, we live in this world of nomads and it seems like the whole world travels, but really the whole world does not travel. So when you first set that goal, you tend to be surrounded by people who think you crazy, who like don't understand it, and who just have this huge question mark written across their face. And it's easy to start to doubt yourself, and that's why it's so important to begin to look for guidance and inspiration from and advice from the people who live a life or a similar life to the one that you dare to dream about. And that was one of the first steps that I really had to understand, is that when I was in my 9 to 5, I was listening to people who were living lives I did not want. In fact, was afraid I would one day end up having, right? And this is a bunch of different things, right? This is, I didn't want their salaries. I had bigger dreams. I didn't want their schedule. I didn't want the way they had to sort of like what I was saying earlier, right? Like fit their life in at the peripheries of their career. Like I didn't want any of that. I always wanted to travel, and being from Germany where we have like 30, 40 paid mandatory vacation days a year, and then living in Los Angeles where you have to, this, right? Where you have to accrue your vacation days, and if you're lucky you end up with 12 a year, but only after a year of working for the same company. It was just, I was like, that's not a life. That's not a life. I want to live a life. And now, specifically to your point about when you follow your heart, things begin to unfold and life sort of conspires in your favor. And I found that this is such a beautiful sentiment, and it's true. But to know it and to say it and to live it are completely different things, right? Because I have yet to travel through a country or get into touch with a culture that teaches its youngest how to be truly authentic to who they are and how to listen to their hearts. Most of the world teaches their youngest to obey, to be obedient to some system that's been put into place, be it by those in power, the patriarchy, like it depends, right? But the powers to be tend to teach their youngest to just obey and to not question and to keep with the status quo. And so we have to, without knowing it, growing up, we unlearn how to listen to our hearts. And then we end up with depression and burnout, and we end up questioning everything. And then we go on our eat, pray, love journey, and we have to relearn how to listen to our hearts. And that's one of the most challenging and one of the most rewarding journeys anyone can ever take themselves on. And I think that both travel and entrepreneurship actually facilitates, in fact, requires you to go on that journey.
Yeah, I love that, Dina. Yes, absolutely. So, Dina, now coming back to your business, what do you actually do? How do you help people? It'll be great to hear from you, because if any of my listeners want to get in touch with you, we'll also put your details in the description
Yeah.
below so that they can get in touch. So, it'll be nice to hear about your business.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So I help new coaches and newly established online service providers establish and grow their business. Now, on the back end, once people graduate from the initial phase of going from zero to consistent 4 figures a month, I also support my clients with diversifying their offer suite, diversifying their revenue streams and their audience platforms so that they can actually build to multiple 6 figures. But knowing who your listeners are, I'm going to focus on the initial stages of building a business, right? So this is where we look at, who do you want to support? and why is that important to you? How do you want to support your clients, and why is that important to you? And how can we now build a business around it? Because just because you have a mission, you're driven by this deep purpose of, I want to support people and I want people's life to improve, doesn't mean that yet affects your bottom line, right? So I have a big focus on, well, how is your purpose affecting the offers that you create, but also how is the dream life that you envision living showing up in the structure of your business, right? This is what we look at. We look at your purpose to get direction on your offers. We look at your vision for your lifestyle to get direction on the actual structure of the business. How do we implement everything in a way so that the business, again, is supportive of the life that you want to live, but also reflective of the changes that you want to see in the world? We look at offer creation, we look at audience development, we look at all of the initial things that an entrepreneur has to do, right? And if I were to rattle it off, it would look like a never-ending to-do list. So something I actually love doing when clients first come to me, they're usually in a stage of, well, I've tried this by myself for a few months now. I've been posting every day on Instagram and nothing is working. I've been sending out my newsletter, but only my mom, my sister, my best friend is reading the newsletter. And I've had a few one-off sessions here and there, and I've gotten a $50 donation, but nothing is happening. My savings are dwindling. I don't know what to do. Dina, help me. And the expectation typically when I begin to speak with a client is, I have to post more. I have to go viral. I have to grow my audience. And typically what I do is I say, let's forget about your content. For the next 2 months, let's just completely forget about your content. If you enjoy doing it, keep doing it. But I'm not going to look at it until you have your first couple of paid clients. Now, of course, the question is, well, how do I get clients if I don't post? So here's where we begin. We begin with your already existing community. We begin with your already existing network, because I have yet to come across a person who doesn't already know their first 5 clients. It's just a matter of learning how to professionally and genuinely activate your existing network and then turn a few select people from a casual connection into a beautiful and deeply aligned and genuine business partnership that actually pays you. So this is where we start, because if you don't know how to connect with the person next to you, be that figuratively speaking or literally at a conference, then you don't know, or you won't have the skills required to connect with your audience through content in a one-to-many fashion. So that's where we start. We start with just remembering, again, this is the theme of this episode, remembering who we are as a human, remembering how to connect. And that's the place from which we begin to build the business.
Wow, Dina, I love that. So I am very active on LinkedIn because my tool is, and this podcast is also sponsored by Bear Connect,
Yeah,
bearconnect.io. It's a LinkedIn outreach tool that helps you connect with your existing network as well
phenomenal.
as yeah, and as well as help you build new connections. So a lot of times we forget that we have 10,000, 12,000, 20,000 followers, and there's the thing in mind that I need to connect with more people, but we
Yeah.
forget about our existing network, and our existing network might be gold, and we never tap into our existing network because we're always looking for more, always looking to increase our followers. So that's
Mhm.
beautiful. I think when I also visit events, I sometimes forget. So I am a salesperson, 20 years of sales experience, but I also sometimes forget to connect with the person sitting next to me. I'm so focused in listening to what the speaker has to say, which is why you go to events, but also networking is an important part of it. And sometimes people
Mhm.
just forget because maybe they are shy in approaching, maybe because for whatever reason. So I think that's very important. Like if you go to an event, make the most of the event by networking with people. You never know who the next person sitting by your side be.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that you touch on this, and I love that you created a whole tool to facilitate this process. Listen, I tallied it all up a couple of weeks ago, and this may have changed by now, but my last 9 clients all came either through personal connections I made through the DMs or at conferences or through referrals, right? They didn't come in through a cold funnel or anything. And now, well, We're talking about how to build a business from the ground up. By the time you get to scaling a business, of course you want to have funnels in place to take some of the nurturing off your manual hands. But when it comes to bringing leads in, especially when it comes to bringing one-on-one clients in, people forget how to human, right? And you said it perfectly, right? You're at this conference, you want to just take notes on everything that the person on stage shares. And yeah, great, maybe that's a great speaker, but you know what's actually going to drive your business forward? Not the taking notes, not the learning yet another skill and about yet another platform. It's to turn to your neighbor and say, hey, what's up? What excites you in life right now? And when I say this, I don't mean, even when I talk about DMs, I want to be really clear on that. I do not mean a cold pitch or a cold DM. I mean a genuine connection. Because when we show up to sell, we don't sell. But when we show up to serve and to really understand the person across the room from us and understand what it is that keeps them up at night and relate through genuine connection and with value, that's when we sell, right? That's when we make a buck. That's when our bottom line begins to increase. I always say to my clients, there's 2 markers of what's going to happen in your bank account within 2 months. One is the number of calls that you have scheduled, because everyone out there who tells you that you don't need to have a sales call in order to grow your business, the reason they can tell you that and be convincing is because they've had thousands of sales calls. So you need to book calls. But the other marker to success being just around the corner is the level of service you bring to the world. How can you genuinely serve? Those are the 2 markers of forthcoming success, in my opinion.
I love that, Dina. So I also send a lot of, because my tool is around LinkedIn outreach.
Yeah.
So what it does is it connects, first of all, it sends connection request to people. Once they accept, it sends the first message. So when I run my own campaigns on LinkedIn using my tool, my first question, my first message to them is, just curious, how do you use LinkedIn? Do you use LinkedIn to build your personal brand, or do you use LinkedIn to outreach? So very conversational, not trying to sell anything, because only when you start building a relationship with them, start having a conversation with them. And in my 3 follow-ups, I don't pitch my tool Bear Connect at all. Only in the end, when they say, yes, tell me more, that's when I go in and pitch. So it's very important that you don't sell, especially in your first message. I've seen that a problem with a lot of people, that they sell in the first. They ask for a call, they ask. And the second thing you mentioned was book calls. I love that, because everyone is a salesperson. Every entrepreneur has to be a salesperson, is a
Yeah.
salesperson, whether they realize or not, whether they like selling or not, whether they hate selling. Everyone is a salesperson, and you need to book calls. You need to book a lot of calls.
Actually talk to your audience.
Exactly, yeah. So, Gina, what is the plan going forward now for you? Are you
That is such a good question that I don't have an answer to. So I guess it's just gonna be Da Nang for the time being. We did, and this might be interesting to hear as well. I've been traveling, whether I've called myself an expat or an employee or now a nomad. I've been traveling constantly for the last decade, right? Da Nang literally is the first city that I've stayed in for more than a year. Let's call it like more than 14 months. I've been here for a year and a half. And after a while, you just burn out because you constantly have to look for new transportation. You constantly have to look for your new favorite supermarket. You constantly have to find the produce that you need to keep your body healthy in new cities, in new supermarkets. The body, the mind grows tired of that, right? So after years of doing that, most of which were solo, but then the last 3 years were with my partner, I've grown tired. So I really enjoy having a base. Really enjoy having a base while not being super committed, right? Like I still don't have a mortgage. I still have a lease that allows me to exit after 6 months just to keep that flexibility. But I've just not found a need to travel a lot. That being said, there's a couple of conferences coming up in the area, but also in Chiang Mai. I'm getting ready to see my family in Germany again. So there's still some travel, but I've sort of graduated from traveling with my home and my backpack to leaving my home and traveling for, a couple of months and then returning to Da Nang. And that just seems really pleasant on the heart and the spirit for the time being.
Yeah, I know, Dina, what you're saying because whenever we travel to a new country, my productivity goes down a lot because
Yep, it
you have
does.
to explore the area, you have to explore the supermarket, and where to eat from, etc. So I completely understand and hoping that by next year or next to next year we'll find a base because we have just started living like this, even though we've traveled quite a lot in the past 10 years. But we are yet to find our base. So the plan is to go back to India in a month and
Yeah.
then stay there for about 2 or 3 months because that's going to be our, let's say, base in Asia. And then we are trying to find another base and hoping that we are going to find soon. So, Gina, before we wrap up, I have one question which we ask everyone.
Yes.
If you could go back to day one of your startup, what would you do differently?
You know, having had the discussion we just had, what I'm about to say might come as a surprise. But I would start building my online brand from day one. And now I want to contextualize this because in the last 5 years, we've seen so many online marketers pop up and act as though the minute you become an online entrepreneur, you have to become a content creator. And that's the only thing you ever need to do to build your business. And that's not true, to put it kindly. Right. However, I sort of, when I first started my business, went completely the other direction, completely ignored building my online brand and went like head first into activating my network and building clients from there. And that is how I would start my business any time of the day, is by just reaching into my network and creating clients from that place, because it's the fastest, it's the most genuine, it's the most authentic way to build a business. It gives you the best foundation for everything that you need. But I actually kind of ignored building community online for a couple of years. And I would start doing that sooner if I were to start over again. But, at the same time, it's never too late to build an online community, right? So anything that everyone wishes they had done in the beginning of their business, you can just start doing it now, right? There is no perfect plan. There is no perfect way to build a business other than making sure that you can build a business that allows you to get to the money fast, because money is the thing that's going to help you keep growing the business, and you need to get there fast. You can't drain your savings by building out all of the pretty platforms and the pretty systems first, and then hopefully you get clients. You have to find a direct way from where you're at to getting money into the bank as quickly as possible. And I did that, and I'm so, so, so grateful that I did that. And that made the business look super scrappy from the outside, but really profitable from the inside, and very impactful for my clients as well. So I'm really, really grateful to my younger self to just have ignored a lot of the advice that even back then was out there.
Wow, I love that. I think that's very smart of you to do that. When
Mm.
I started my agency 2 years ago, I just focused on content and I missed out on a lot. So yes,
Yeah.
I agree with absolutely what you're saying. I have one more question. What's the number one step for anyone thinking to leave their 9 to 5 job to become their own boss?
I mean, even just entertaining the thought is such a big, big, big success. So the first thing I want you to do is to congratulate yourselves and to acknowledge yourself for the bravery that you have to entertain that thought, and to begin to turn that thought into a plan. I'm going to just give you an actual action step on top of that. Building a business, especially while you're still in your 9 to 5, is hard AF. There is just no sugarcoating it. It's going to take sacrifice. It's going to take budgetary sacrifice because you're going to want to hire someone to help you do it. It's just going to expedite the process. So that may mean that you take from your savings. That may mean that you don't go on that weekend trip, that you don't go on that next vacation. Sacrifice. But also sacrifice of time. It's going to require you to find these pockets of time, maybe before you go into your 9 to 5, maybe a couple of hours after you come home from your 9 to 5, to really build your business. And you just have to be okay with that, because your future self is waiting for you to just meet it. So you have to build towards that. And then finally, like I said before, you have to get to the money fast. So especially if you're still in your 9 to 5, I find people being afraid to start posting about their new business because they're afraid to get fired. And that's a real fear. And you don't have to do that. Like we just said, Mona, you and I, we've said this, right? You don't need to start with content. You can start with activating your network and just creating one high ticket one-on-one offer that you can, with which you can reach into your community and say, hey, I've started to serve my community in this way. I think this would be helpful for you. How about we get on a call and I can just figure out if this is still something that's on your mind, where you're stuck at, where you want to go, and if I can help you. And if you're not the person, who do you know who needs support with that? And you just work yourself through your network like that. You can do it quietly. Your boss is not going to know. But much more importantly, with that, you're building the financial foundation for you to be able to safely quit your job. You're also building the intellectual foundation for you to know what to actually post about, because you've now spoken with your ideal audience, with your ideal client, made a buck off of it, given yourself the exit ramp out of your 9 to 5, and provided yourself with all of the intel, all of the knowledge that you need about your client to now take that and begin to build a solid online brand as well. So first things first, acknowledge yourself for the bravery that you have. Acknowledge and be okay with the fact that you're going to have to sacrifice, and then start with building out one high ticket one-on-one offer that you can sell one-on-one quietly by just working yourself through your network.
Dina, I love how you touch upon the foundations and not just talk through the theory of it, but it completely looks to me that you've done it, you've trained a lot of clients because you know the basics. And a lot of people forget. So I speak to a lot of coaches. When I used to live in Amsterdam, there's like a big community of coaches. But I love how you touch upon, the small things, the basics of how to get started. It was lovely having you here, Dina. Thank you so much.
It's been such a pleasure to be here. Thank you for providing this platform.
Thanks for listening. This episode was sponsored by Bear Connect, an AI-powered LinkedIn automation tool that helps you save hours every week. If you enjoyed this conversation, make sure you follow or subscribe and share it with at least one person who needs a reminder to follow their dream. See you next time.